Japanese game shows are wild. They're one of the most creative, unpredictable, and just completely bizarre forms of TV that I've ever seen. Like, you seriously don't know what you're getting into when you start watching these shows. The contestants of these games always show this, like, really admirable enthusiasm, and they're not afraid of getting embarrassed. Japanese humor is kind of heavily based around self-deprecation and embarrassment, so I think that's partly why these contestants are really willing to put themselves in completely insane situations that have hilarious outcomes, all for the sake of entertainment. And I will tell you one thing, in my time researching for this video, some of these games are absolutely insane. And some actually cross, which we've got into, some ethical boundaries that we in the West would not do. Now, I watched a shit ton of different Japanese game shows for this video, and if I missed anything, do let me know in the comments down below if you have a favourite that I just happen to overlook. So in today's video, I want to break down some of the funniest game shows I've come across. I'm going to start with one called Takeshi's Castle, which first aired in 1986, and it was kind of like the landmark game for the genre in Japan. It basically was this super over-the-top obstacle course with really funny physical challenges, and most people failed. Basically, Takeshi is a comedian, and the whole premise of this show is that he's like the count of the castle, and he basically sets the challenges, and if you can get to the end of all these challenges, you take him head on to take over his castle, which is kind of the basic premise of it. But the challenges are so crazy and insane and hilarious to watch that most people don't make it, but like, you don't really care, because the whole point is just watching people try and fail, hilariously doing so. And to be fair, like, a lot of the contestants seem to love it, as you can see. Now, next up, I wanted to talk about one that has made the biggest cultural impact, not just in Japan, but in terms of pop culture, but in terms of the world. And this one is known as Sasuke, which I could be butchering. Now, many of you will actually know by its English name, which is Ninja Warrior. Now, this first aired in 1997 and has obviously had countless international versions made, and that still exists to this day. Now, this is purely a very difficult 4-staged obstacle course, and it requires a lot of stamina, agility, and strength to finish. And out of the thousands of people over the years that have tried to finish this, majority of who have failed, you kind of watch it not to laugh or to ridicule the contestants, but you watch it out of like admiration for them, because it's so difficult. And you see the same people coming back year after year, and you see that determination. And the one thing that you notice with the Japanese version in particular is that they're so humble in it that even when they fall, when they get hurt, they'll still bow to the crowd and they'll still thank them. And again, that just shows kind of Japanese culture true and true. Now, the next one I want to talk about is one by the name of Tor, which is another Japanese game show where contestants actually have to solve like puzzles and quizzes to kind of test their knowledge. The one that it's most famous for is its mummification one, where basically contestants have 60 seconds to answer 7 questions correctly, and if they don't, they slowly get wrapped up and mummified. And if they don't get there in time, they get put into a coffin. And to me, that is horrific, and there's no chance as hell I would partake in it. But it does go to show like how far they're willing to push the creative boundaries to come up with these ideas, and that it does highlight the absolute insanity of Japanese game shows. Now, the next one is like a game show that is hosted by the comedy duo Downtown. It has numerous of games that are hilarious, but there are 2 that I want to focus on the most. One is quite actually a simple one called No Laughing Batsu, where contestants just aren't allowed to laugh no matter what, and they're kind of put in these really crazy, bizarre scenarios. And sometimes the scenarios aren't even that crazy, but just watching them trying not to laugh, I was struggling. Some of the faces that they make is absolutely hilarious, and I just think it's pure gold, personally. But the one that made me laugh the hardest was one called The Silent Library, where basically the lads go into a library, they have to remain quiet, and they get given a deck of cards, and one card decides who gets punished. And it's the punishments that are the most bizarre, because while they're getting punished, they have to stay as quiet as possible, and that just makes the whole thing hilarious. Like, for example, one punishment is when a dude has to get slapped by a penis machine. Some of the other punishments, though, are fucking great, like a slap machine in the face, groin massage with a foot. One dude has to get wasabi stuffed up his nose, and it just gets funnier and funnier because they have to remain quiet. And the thing that I found the most hilarious about it was when the contestant that realizes that they're the ones that are getting punished, that is almost funnier than the actual punishment itself. And I was, as the Irish love to say, I was in stitches laughing at this. It was so funny to me. So this next one's a little weird to me. It's one where it's the table game shuffleboard, but they replaced the puck with an old man, and the table is literally women in bikinis lined up. And basically what the man has to do is, who is also oiled up, is slide along as many women as possible. And he gets 3 attempts to do this. And the further he gets, if he can get to the end, then he wins. And to me, this is like, I don't know whether it's creepy or just weird or both. But the one thing that kind of enters my mind with it is like, how the hell did they even think of something like this? And I can pretty much guarantee that the old man's having a great time. And those poor women, those poor young women, by the way, are probably having a terrible time. So to me, that's a super fucking weird concept. Now they also do kind of more kind of prank ones that are just cruel. Like there's one called What's in the Box, where it's quite terrifying, where basically you have to stick your hand into a box and you have to feel what it is and guess what it is based off the feeling. Something that we've seen before in the Western world, but the difference is they put things like tarantulas and insects and snakes and things into it, which is horrific and terrifying. And if you're someone like me who does not like spiders, for example, I'm not enjoying that. I'm not doing it. But it's quite entertaining and funny to watch because people guess completely wrong things, but also when they realize what it is, their reaction is quite funny. And it is genuine too, but it is at the same time fairly cruel. Now, the next one I wanted to talk about was one that quickly got cancelled called Orgasm Wars. And this concept of this show was crazy to me, where basically the contestant had to prevent himself from having an orgasm by another contestant performing a sexual act on him. And the only one I could find, which seems to be the common theme for this show, was it was a male porn star, a straight male porn star that had another man trying to perform a sex act on him to get him to orgasm. That's the show. And the man has to try not to orgasm. And the fact that was even the show, you can look it up if you want to see it. There was actually a YouTuber that did a video on this where she actually showed the video. I didn't think it was real. He does lose in the end, if you're wondering. It's a crazy idea. No chance I'm showing it on my video though, because I would like to make some sort of money on this video. But that is the craziest example of all these examples I've given. Now they also have other kind of, ones that are kind of just more fun, family friendly, of course. Like there's one called Brain Wall, where basically the contestants are dressed up in spandex and they have to position their bodies to match the shape of the wall as it's coming towards them to win. So if they can get through the gap doing the shape, they win. If they get knocked off, they land in 4 feet of water and they lose. But it's completely more wholesome and family friendly than the orgasm one for sure. There's also another one I want to mention, which was a marshmallow eating one, where you have to put a rubber band around your face and move towards marshmallows and try to eat one. And once you eat one, the next person has to go in and take your place. But the further away the marshmallow is, the more pressure it's putting on your head because of the rubber band. And just watching their facial expressions as they're trying to eat the marshmallow is, as you can see, it's so fucking stupid, but it's so funny at the same time. And it's you just imagine all these writers, all these creative people that are trying to come up with ideas for these shows, just getting stoned, because how else are you going to come up with this? Now the final one I want to talk about, which is the most controversial in Japan's TV history, is one by the name of Denpa Shonin's Nazubi experiment. Nazubi was basically challenged to stay alone, unclothed, in an apartment for the show, which was a Japanese reality television show on Nippon television. He basically had no food or clothes and had to enter magazine contests until he won $1,000,000 yen, which is about $8,000. And he also had to use this as a way to win items to kind of help him get through each day. And in the end, he was there for 355 days while it was all live streamed the entire time without his knowledge. On an AMA Reddit years later, he explained that back then in the 90s, there was no contracts for contestants, so he was not aware he was being filmed or anything like that. There was no rights or anything. Now, one thing that is important to mention is that the door wasn't locked and he could leave whenever he wanted. But he stuck it out, and 355 days later, he got out. But it's also important to mention that there was no clock, no outside communication, and no contact with crew, except for the cameras filming him. And today it's seen as what it should be seen as, controversial TV that crossed very ethical boundaries. Now, I think it's fair to say that Japan shows are weird, crazy, and somewhat controversial. Japanese game shows are famous worldwide for being wild, unique, and often outrageous. But they also are deeply rooted in Japan's comedy and entertainment culture. Humor in Japan, like I mentioned, embraces embarrassment, awkwardness, and perseverance. Now, of course, like I mentioned, there are many, many more examples of the game shows, but they're the ones that kind of stood out to me the most. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. If there's anything I missed, like I mentioned, please mention them in the comments. Let me know if there's any game shows that are even wackier and crazier than even I think. Let me know. I'm sure there's plenty out there that I missed. It's kind of hard to know what some of these games are because a lot of these clips that I found have no English, so it's very difficult to figure out what the shows are based off the visuals, but you know, I tried my best. But that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace out.